was told many years ago that a man learns one central truth in his life as he grows up, and that is, there is a God, and you're not him. And I would say from a day-to-day, knowing full well that I'm not him, and really glad I'm not trying to run the universe is a good thing. The more I have studied both my faith and physics and my profession, the more I have come to the conclusion that there's more things on heaven and earth than is dreamt of in the materialist philosophy. That the things that really make life worth living, love, enjoyment, getting outside yourself, all of those things are not explicable by science. Oh, you can pretend you can explain it as, oh, well, it helps human race survive, but it doesn't say anything about right or wrong, and right and wrong are at this absolute core of our being. I believe that God is in everything that I do, and I believe that to be successful, you have to conform your beliefs and actions to the way the world is actually built. So, by definition, I believe that, but not that I think, I believe in God because it's good for me, or I believe in God because it's good for my company. No, I believe in God, and I find that it is good for me and good for my company. I want to share with you something that I've been working on for a long time that is very important to me, and that is a Discord channel for business. On it, there will be a lot of free information, but also access to me. So you can have the ability to ask me questions, and I can respond to your particular problems and difficulties, and also help you get started. I'm really looking forward to being able to interact with you individually on there. I look forward to seeing everybody on there, and I will be waiting for you. Now, let's get back to our video. Imagine you're hiking somewhere in the jungle in the middle of nowhere, and you come to a rope bridge across a chasm. And you have to go that way. There's no choice in the matter. Now, as you're walking up to the rope bridge, you can believe that the rope bridge will support you. But you're not investing anything in that. You're just believing that. But the moment you step foot on that rope bridge and start using it to go across, you've switched from belief to faith. That is going to hold up underneath you. In religion, you find both of those points are there. You can intellectually believe it, but until you have to lean on it, usually when you have to lean on it and you have no choice, it's only then that you discover the bridge will hold you up. First of all, I started off reading too much Ayn Rand and Robert Heinlein, and so I wound up as, at least I didn't become an atheist like Rand, I became an agnostic like Heinlein, in that I believe that was the easiest argument, because you can't prove existence or non-existence of God, was my view. And that was a consistent point of view for a long time through, like, say, high school. But in high school, my English teacher put on a debate, and I can't believe you could get away with this then. You could never get away with it now. It was a debate between a Christian, an agnostic, an atheist, and an existentialist. Now leave the existentialist out of it, because she was doing it because the teacher told her to, not because she was an existentialist. So let's talk about the three that are actual systems of belief. Going into it, everyone expected the agnostic to win the debate, because it's the easiest of all arguments. It's not trying to prove a point, either for or against the existence of God. It's saying, oh, and that's a lot easier argument to make. But that's not what happened. The Christian, the theist, ran away with it. His arguments were better, his arguments were more consistent, his arguments explained things a lot better than either of the other two did in the world itself. And I took note. It didn't send me out to, become a believer or of any kind at that point, but it was the start of that. Fast forward to college. I am associating with a bunch of followers of St. Thomas Aquinas that are Roman Catholics. And it was not what you would think. It was like discussing things with fellow physicists. This is the way the world works. This is the philosophical and intellectual system around the facts that we've measured in the world, and it holds together. And it makes predictions, and those predictions are carried out. And they are the ones that showed me that a true religion, like a true science, have those properties. And that was the second where I said, maybe there is maybe there is something there. But the real change when I said, okay, I won't call it a leap of faith, because I think the arguments I've made today were already made in my head, and I was coming to the conclusion of it. But I said, I will take the next step and say that I believe. Now, what I decided to believe is subject for another discussion. But I came to that conclusion, and then I stepped onto the rope bridge. And at that point, everything changes. There's more fear, and then there's less fear. There's a wonderful line from a song that they were singing in church last Sunday, and that is a man speaking to God. I do not know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. And that makes the difference. There's a scripture that says, your word is a light unto my feet. Well, what was a light like in 2,000 years ago? It was like a candle flame. You could see your feet and maybe a step or two ahead, but that's all. That's what God's word is. It's a thing to follow minute by minute, second by second. Does it interfere with things I want to do? Oh yeah, it definitely interferes with things I want to do. Does it interfere with my living a good and prosperous life? Not at all. I wish I had learned how to be perfect. I'm several million years away from that but I have learned one thing, and that is when I have cast myself upon God, even if it takes me a long time to realize it, he holds me up. It is interesting, if you look at the science, the harder the science, the higher the percentage of believers. So biologists are the worst, and that's why you wind up with polemicists that are atheistic biologists. The non-scientists like sociology and things like that, they're the worst. But because they think they have a psychological explanation for why you believe in what you do. They don't. But when you cross the line to chemistry, and you cross the line from chemistry into physics, and from physics into mathematics, because the universe is so structured and becomes less and less and less dependent on our whims, and more and more dependent upon an actual physical structure of the way the universe is built, the percentage of believers goes up. Now, I don't think in any of the hard sciences it passes 50%, but it's not an insignificant number. It's actually quite a high number. Interestingly, I have almost never met a real scientist who is hostile to religion. He might not believe it, but he's not hostile. I've met plenty of pseudoscientists and social scientists and so forth that were vehemently and violently triggered by the idea of religious belief. Why, I have no idea, but there it is. They avoid the idea of a creator because they don't want to be a created thing. We all want to believe we own ourselves and that everything about us is self-made. Well, this is, besides being obviously nonsense, we didn't create ourselves at birth. We didn't teach ourselves the things that our parents and our teachers and so forth taught us. That came from outside. We are dependent upon the rest of the world around us. But we all want to pretend that we are autonomous creatures. And one of the things that sometimes happens is you realize you're not, and it's devastating. Quite often, that devastation leads to religious belief because you discover what you are missing. So that's my conclusion on that. I will say again what I said before, none of the major world religions are what I would have invented. The fact that I see people living in them and live in one of them myself, despite not liking some of the things that it, especially not early on, tells me that I'm looking at something outside myself, something real. It's not something I'm imagining myself. And an awful lot of people, I remember Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton thought his religious writings were more important than his physics. And I'll stand with Newton on that one. Yeah. Why is there evil in the world? Sometimes because it's evil that shows us where good is. And shows us why we so desperately need good, and we need the source of good, which is God. Well, I'll give you an example. This is something that's called I call it God's parlor tricks. It's little stunts that God does. And believer after believer after believer has experienced exactly the same thing that I have. When you are a new believer and you ask God for something, he will sometimes fulfill it so precisely and accurately that you just have to laugh. And then after a time, those things stop. And C.S. Lewis once asked a more mature friend of his, why do they stop? And the answer the man gave is the correct one, because you don't need them anymore. But you do need them up front, and I'll give you a couple of examples just off the top of my head. My wife was at that point not a believer. She and I were driving through the middle of absolutely nowhere in California, and we were on fumes. Oh, I neglected to mention that we were on a snow-covered dirt road in the middle of nowhere because I had decided to go see where it went. So here we are, 50 miles later on said road, almost out of gas. So we were talking about the efficacy of prayer. Does God answer prayer? Does God do things for you? And I said, let's put it to the test. And I said, what do we want? So we decided we wanted the following things. We wanted to find a gas station before we ran out of gas. We wanted an open restaurant, because it was late. Yeah. And we wanted that open restaurant to have a salad bar.
You don't know where you are.
No. It turned out near the greater urban area of Hayfork, which should tell you about how far out in the country we were. So those three things, a gas station, an open restaurant with a salad bar. So we had those three things. So we come tooling along, and finally we come out from the dirt road onto a paved road and turn right, and then there's what turns out to be a bar right there. It's open, not a restaurant, just a bar. So I go in and I talk to the woman behind the bar, and I said, can you tell me where there might be an open gas station around here? And her response is she laughs. Now that's not the response you normally want to that question. So she said, come with me. So she pulls me over to a window, and she points out there and said, you see that dirt track? There's a dirt track going off into the woods. She said, see that dirt track? Get on that dirt track and follow it for about a mile. I said, okay, this is a leap of faith. So I said, all right. So I go, get in the car, I drive on this, and I swear it was a Jeep track. And it winds off into the woods, and we come to a small clearing in the woods. And in the clearing in the woods is a single bare bulb hanging from a pole and 4 gas pumps. No one around, no other buildings, no other structures, and the gas pumps took dollar bills. You put a dollar bill in, it gave you $1 worth of gas. You put another dollar bill in, it gave you another $1 worth of gas. So we had enough dollar bills, we filled up the car. Okay, this proved two things. God answers prayer, and he has a real good sense of humor, because I'm still laughing about that one. Yes, technically that was a gas station, and technically it was open. We get back, take the dirt track back, get on the main road, and now we're heading through town. Nothing's open because it's so late. Nothing is open. Everything's complete. What little we see is closed. We're just coming to the outside of town when we see a building with lights on. So we turn off the road and we go up there. A restaurant. And it's open. So we go in and the waitress takes us to our table, and I'm looking around, no salad bar. Well, I said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So so we start to sit down, and the waitress says, and as soon as you visited our salad bar, and points to this room I hadn't seen, I'll take your order. So 1, 2, 3, and very precisely, and at least in 2 cases rather humorously. So, and those were things that I needed, and more important at that point, Heidi needed, to show God's handiwork. Later, no. We are willing to believe he wants the best for us regardless of that. But there was that one. That was not by any means the only one. I'll give you another one, brief one. My friend Mark and I, whom I've mentioned several times, hiked from the Mexican border to Yosemite when we both got out of the Navy. And we were both fairly new Christians at that point. So we are hiking in the middle of god-awful snow, high up in the mountains south of Palm Springs. So the mountains south of Palm Springs are quite high, and there was a lot of snow. It was early in the season. It was probably early March. And so, like 1.5 feet of snow. And we come to the greater urban area of Idlewild, which is a small, very pretty small town. We're walking down through, just starting into the town, and we were talking again about prayer and the efficacy of prayer. And we decided to see what was it we wanted and what asked for it. So we wanted an open restaurant where someone would take us in for the night, because we did not want to pitch a tent in 20-degree weather out in the snow, and give us good breakfast and send us on our way in the morning. 3 very specific, measurable requests. And then we continue on down into the population 1,000 town and wander around in it. Well, we get into the middle of town, and lo and behold, there is life in that building there. So we go into it, and it's a restaurant. So we go in, and we have dinner, and I think I'm drinking my 45th cup of coffee, trying to avoid going out into the snow. I get up and go to the bathroom, probably courtesy of the cups of coffee. My friend Mark, I come back, and my friend Mark is talking to our waitress. Well, our waitress was having a very bad day. In fact, she wound up quitting her job that day. But that was a subject for later discussion, but for right then, she said to Mark, "This is not a pickup, but my husband and I have a cabin here in town. You guys are willing to spend the night at our place." So we did. Two utter complete strangers. We went out and had drinks with her and her husband, and she told us about quitting her job and throwing a cup of soup at her boss and so on. Anyway, so they take us home. We spend the night there. She's there, her husband and her daughter. In the morning, she serves us this ginormous French toast breakfast and everything, and sends us on our way back down into the low country and out of there. 1, 2, 3. And do I say that everybody who makes prayers like that gets them answered like that? No. But an inordinate number of people do. And a lot of people can share those kinds of experiences. So that's those sorts of internal evidence after conversion, if you want to call it that, were the most convincing. But it obviously was enough convincing me to cause me to be a believer in the first place. If you want to understand faith, if you want to recover faith that you have lost, serve other people. That sounds weird, but I mean it. Serve other people. You've been through rough times, and people lose their faith usually from going through rough times that are, they believe, too much for them. Help them through their time, and you will discover something. You'll discover first a bond with other human beings, and then you'll discover that there has to be a cause for that bond. They're not my relatives. They're not helping my genetic code propagate itself. They're simply another person who needed help. And I benefit and they benefit from that relationship. Why? And that's where you'll start to recover your faith. Go help someone else. I had a friend of mine who was going through a real bad crisis. And I said, whenever you're feeling particularly lousy, don't pray for yourself, pray for me. And I'll pray for you. And that made all the difference because we're looking outside ourselves. And faith, and I don't care what religion it is, particularly Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, are all have a set of defined beliefs with a God that's outside, not inside, and wants us to do things and is willing to tell us what to do. Not expect belief to make your life easier. Often it makes your life a lot harder because corner cutting, screwing another person over, all those sorts of things become much more difficult. Much harder on you to do and much more difficult for you to get to do in the first place, which is good, of course. But you will find that there's a change when you say, okay, show me.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for telling me and telling the viewers of why believing in God is very important to you and how God has helped you through your journey. Thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome, and as I said, I will respond to any comments that people make if they're polite. I have no interest in people who scream as a way of conveying their opinion. I don't do it, and I don't think other people should do it either.